It is time for Coffee on the Coast. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Coffee on the Coast. I'm your host today, Tina Prigge. Look who is joining us today. I'm so excited to welcome back to the show Dylan Chmura-Moore. Dylan Chmura-Moore is the music director of the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra. Dylan, so nice to see you. How's it going?
It's going wonderful, and I'm so glad this is happening at 1 because it's that dip, right, where I want to take a nap, but we've got our coffee on the coast. We're springing back into action.
I love it. You've got a coffee cup in hand. There's a coffee cup on your lapel. You are totally prepared. And I think, you know what, to wake ourselves up, to wake the audience up, let's play a little clip of Haydn. What do you say?
Please.
All right. Do we need any preface before we listen to this?
Let's listen and then jump in.
All right, here we go. Okay. Wow. That was awesome. I want to start every day like that.
Well, I don't know. After I tell you maybe a little bit more of what it's about.
Yes, do.
So I think that's a great clip to begin with. It's something we're playing, obviously, on Saturday, February the 4th with the orchestra. It's classical music. It's from, the later 1700s. It's by Franz Joseph Haydn, who you think of with white wigs and tights and just, I don't know, passivity, refinement that goes towards banality, if that's a word. Just I want to fall asleep to music, background music or whatever. But these individuals created some of the most dynamic, to be literal about it for what we just heard, inventive, original, creative, just visceral, sometimes aggressive music that you can imagine. And so what we just listened to is actually at the very end of an hour-long oratorio that he wrote, based on Christ's 7 last words on the cross. And so what we just heard is representation of "Into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit." And its subtitle, Haydn's words, is "The Earthquake." So what we're just hearing is, well, all of that. So it is. Usually at the ends of something, it's joyful, it's uplifting, or it's serene and it's peaceful. And this is a nail in the hand, right? This is the most devastating and challenging thing that we could possibly have, and this is just one of 7 Haydn smaller short pieces that I've selected. Each, I think, getting at to a little bit of their truth of who these composers really were, Mozart and Haydn, more so than blah 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 symphony that we hear on in the background of the dentist's office while we're on our commute to work or something along those lines. This is it's real, it's gritty, it is it's alive, regardless if it was composed over 200 years ago.
Yeah, cool. You could really just feel it like inside, like the drums, all the music. Let's tell people we are talking the reason we're talking about this, and you said you've got a number of Haydn pieces picked out, it is for the classical era Pops concert that the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra is going to be staging on February 4th. That's a Saturday, 7:30 p.m. at the Capitol Civic Center in Manitowoc. Okay, you said gritty, witty, inventive, passionate. This is kind of a unique take because, like you said, we think about the white powdered wigs and this very somber or very serious, studious kind of classical music, and that's not the take that you're taking for this concert. We're exploring this kind of fun, powerful, unexpected, revolutionary side of these guys.
I hope so. I mean, if you transport yourself back to the age of these individuals, late 1700s. I mean, there's no indoor bathrooms, right? There's no penicillin, there's no waxing. There's concealer, I suppose, but it's like this thick white pasty thing that looks more like a ghost and is frightful than any kind of alluring. I mean, bodices and all that kind of stuff. You literally couldn't breathe in things, right? I mean, it was hard life. It was hard living. You'd shower, you wouldn't shower, right? You'd bathe in the creek once a week or whatever. I mean, this is just the serious, hardest core, I think, in some ways, a time and place. And so it's easy for us to think about and position it today as this music. Oh, it's only supported by the aristocracy, and there's minks, and there's these cushy sheets, and cushy chairs, and we show up in our limousines, and everything is just posh and elegant and refined and so mannered, and there's all these rules. But what this music that you're listening to, or that we'll be playing on the 4th, a lot of it was brand new. No one ever heard about this before. Before Haydn and Mozart, the symphony itself was just kind of like this little ditty that we threw at the beginning of plays to make people shut up, and to focus on what's to come. And Haydn and Mozart took it and said, no, this could be something real and awesome and a reflection of us, this humanity and what we're capable of. And so all of a sudden, we have this new original creative spirit that's just being poured through these individuals. Jason put in the chat, right, that these are rock stars at the time. Indeed, it's classical pops because these are two of the most popular individuals of all time in music, and they were certainly the most popular in the day. For the first time, we had international superstars, and these were two of those first two superstars, internationally renowned and acclaimed as virtuoso on their instruments, and also in the opera house and the concert hall, you name it.
So you've specially selected some pieces from both Mozart and Haydn that you'll be presenting on the 4th, February 4th, and it's really going to kind of highlight their genius over their lifetime. And you're also doing it to a candlelit stage. Okay, this is so cool. This blurb that there's going to be over 350 candles illuminating the stage. Tell us more about that.
I wonder if this has ever happened in the CCC before. I don't know. Has it ever happened in Manitowoc before? I don't know.
I've never seen it.
It's so we're I don't know if I'm sure we've all had this experience where the power's cut out and we have to turn off our screens. We don't have access to our screens anymore, and we find a candle in some weird shelf somewhere or whatever. We discover the matches hidden under the couch cushion or whatever. We light a candle, and all of a sudden we're transported in a lot of ways to something remote. I don't know, maybe it's going up to the North Woods in winter. It's this turning off of all this buzzing around us of electricity, and instead we have this intimacy, this realness, I think, that is given to us by this real flame. And so, I love the CCC, but all those lights, in some ways, do they make things a little bit more artificial? Is it more makeup on our faces? Well, I think candlelight maybe in some ways is going to take all that away, it's my hope, and bring us in closer to the music, bring us closer to the genius of these two individuals and these musics that we're playing. And so 300 plus candles on stage, in and amongst the orchestra, and it is going to be hopefully an experience that not just transports us to another era. I don't necessarily want that. There's not a good era or a bad era, but a place away from our hectic, crazy lives, focuses on elsewhere, and instead focusing right here on the people that are making this beautiful music, the people you're sitting next to, and you're surrounded to, and enjoying this awesome experience with. There is nothing like a candle. and it's become even my go-to thing. I go into my office, I light a candle, it smells good, I turn off the lights, and I get better work done without all these kind of crazy distractions that are going on. So
Okay.
I think it'll be a once in maybe ever experience that we've had, and I bet it's going to be so popular we're going to have to bring it back.
So you're saying candlelight, we're talking about February 4th. I'm thinking this is the perfect date night for Valentine's Day, right? Bring your date and you've got a candlelit experience. It's the week before Valentine's Day. It's kind of perfection.
And it's not cliche. Oh, we have to go out on Valentine's Day. Oh, we're so above that. No. And it's maybe even could be a little surprise. Oh, guess what? I think you're onto something. Absolutely.
And it's easy. So for this candlelight concert, it is Saturday, February 4th. Just scan this QR code. It will take you directly to where you can purchase tickets. And if you're 35 and under, lucky you, because tickets are only $10. That is amazing for what you're describing.
Cheaper than a movie, right? It's cheaper than a martini. I think it's a fantastic deal. And will hopefully lead to even more, hanging outs after the concerts. After every single concert, I love to have a little after party, partnering with some sort of local business or restaurant bar downtown, where we can continue to socialize. We can have a little community. I think music is about people, the people who made it, the people who are receiving it, the people who are creating it today, and it forces us to come together, listen to better to one another, to be more compassionate to one another, and it's a shared experience. So after the music, we can go to the Stage Door Pub right around the corner from the CCC, so you don't have to get in your car and drive anywhere. Just walk down the half a block, and you're going to have some lovely hors d'oeuvres by another local establishment, some specialty cocktails designed just for us for the evening, and to be able to congregate with your friends and neighbors and the musicians. Instead of being separated by the media that we consume or the jobs we work, we have now a shared experience to put our arm around another and to grow the community.
Yeah, and when you have that shared experience, like music, even the music clip that we heard to start this, right? You're moved by it. There's some magic in sharing that experience, especially. So every time that I've left the Capitol Civic Center after a symphony performance, it's like there's a buzz. You're kind of on this high, right? And to keep that going and share that magic in that community, what a great thing to do is to go to this afterglow at the Stage Door Pub. And I heard that there's going to be an opportunity to win. There's going to be a raffle for Mozart's favorite wine, right, from the Tokay region of Hungary. That's pretty cool.
It's a real thing. I mean, we're not making that up. It's well documented that he had this favorite wine. It's a sweet wine. It's kind of like an ice wine if you've ever had that. So it's not like a red or white that we typically would get if we go to the wine bar or anything like that. This is a really unique, rare thing, and it's a sipper and it's delightful. Yeah.
It's so unique. I love how you bring all of this together for an experience, right? That it is the music and more. Let's talk a little bit more. Do you want me to play another clip?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Anything that we need to know, or should we listen to it first? Okay, that is so beautiful, Dylan. Should I have kept it going? Oh, Dylan is messaging me that he can't hear anything. Can you hear me now, Dylan? Oh no, Dylan can't hear me. Okay, let's see if I stop sharing. Did that improve anything, Dylan? I can hear you. Okay, so we've got nothing. I'm going to let you know that this concert, Classical Era Pops, presented by the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra, is happening on Saturday, February 4th at the Capitol Civic Center. All you need to do is click on this QR code. It will take you to where you can purchase tickets. You can also visit manitowocsymphony.org for more information or go directly to the Capitol Civic Center.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Hey, awesome. Okay, I just wanted to reiterate, we're talking about Mozart and Haydn, two of the most popular musicians of all time. The MSO is going to be performing their greatest hits, revealing their genius over a lifetime of composition. Dylan, what else are we missing?
I didn't spill my coffee on my computer. It has to do with echo something. I don't know.
Okay.
Weird tech stuff. So we were just watching Haydn's 45th Symphony. Though I couldn't hear it, I'm sure that's what it was. And it's nicknamed The Farewell. So the funny story about this, and this is actually how we're going to end the concert, is Haydn's main employer took him away from big urban centers. He had this court out in Hungary and Esterhazy, and they would go out and compose in the summer, and it was not just be him, but this whole troupe of musicians. I mean, there'd be 20 musicians on staff basically that would go out, and the composers, the transcribers, the trumpeters, the violinists, a whole band basically goes out and is the entertainment for the royalty or dignitaries who come through or what have you. And it needed to be vacation. The season was up. People wanted to go back to their families, and the court remained in session. And so Haydn had to stay. All the musicians had to stay, and it was going on a little too long, and everyone really wanted to get back to their families. And so Haydn composed this work to be performed, and put a little theatrics at the end. So if you were to watch the whole clip there at the end, they make it a little theatrical, and we do it a little differently. But one by one, Haydn actually notates for the musicians to stop playing, and once upon a time, blow out their candle that was illuminating the music in front of their stand, and get up and leave, making a point that, all right, we're done. We need to get on with our vacation. This is you're keeping us for far too long. Well, nobility got the cue, and they sent everyone home on vacation, and it was okay. But I mean, Haydn had such clout, with his employers that he could do something like this. And so it's become tradition now, so that when you play this piece, you follow the same markings that Haydn put in for his musicians, and one by one, as the music stops for that individual or section or what have you, you get up and you leave the stage, and then at the end you're left with just two violinists playing there at the very end. And so it'll be hard to do that with hundreds of candles all over the stage. So our stands are illuminated by stand lights, and so we'll be clicking out our stand light one by one as we follow throughout. And the conductor stops conducting, perhaps even. And it's just a lovely way to, just like the candles bring us and slow us down, this kind of slowly reducing the orchestra. Instead of a build, slowly reducing the orchestra until there's just two players left playing alone on stage, instead of maybe the 75 that we'd have, or 110 or whatever we had, 125 I think we had for the last concert. Just come down to two at the end with all the candles, I think is a nice way to turn down the dial a little bit.
Oh, it's fascinating. I love that. And as I'm listening to you tell this story, it's fascinating to think of these composers presenting in real time, right? Like as they've composed these things, they're now presenting them to the royalty and to their audience in relation to what's happening in their timeline in real time, right? Can you imagine being at the first performance of one of these pieces? It's incredible.
I think it's we have this. I think it's hilarious that today we have this kind of like, it's so rigorous and planned and organized. All right, well, it doesn't matter what opera company, symphony company, pop artist, or whatever. We write these tunes, we plan them years in advance. We make this big presentation that this new thing is going to be presented, and it happens. And sometimes we like it, sometimes we don't. But in their day, it was music for use. You needed you needed to write a new symphony, literally, because so and so was getting baptized. You needed to write a new symphony because it was the fall festival and we're gonna all come outside and eat pumpkin pies or whatever. We needed to write a new symphony because so and so's I don't know. I already used baptism. so and
Bar
so passed
mitzvah maybe,
away, and
or
good, bad,
yeah.
or fun or whatever, and it would be one of those things that, all right, I got to do this in 3 days. All right, I'm going to write something, I'm going to put it together, and we're going to rehearse it over the next couple days, and we're going to do it, and that's what it is. And so the genius that goes into making these tunes so fast, so with such creativity and nuance and development, I think is just it's mind-boggling. It's uh, uh, it's akin to, I don't know, some, right, all this Taylor Swift news, right, about all the concert stuff that's happening, right, all that's so produced and projected for months and months in advance. Can you imagine like someone saying, "Hey Taylor, we need you to write a new song and do it in 3 days because whatever, the White House needs a new song because some dignitaries from whatever China are coming in for a state dinner or whatever," and go, and it's like, okay, and then we're gonna do it, and it's gonna be awesome, and now it's gonna spend the test of time. Like, oh my gosh, it's so interesting. Not that I'm not ragging on Taylor Swift, like maybe she could do it. I have no idea, right? That's not what I'm talking about. But it's just a different way of thinking and using music. It's we think about music now just this purely pleasurable thing or whatever. Oh, I'm going to take a break from my day and go to the symphony or whatever. But it's kind of like film music is nowadays. It's for use. It had a purpose, and it was necessary in a lot of ways to have any kind of event. Now we can just throw on Spotify or whatever, but be able to create that from scratch and present that, I think it's awesome.
Let's unpack something you said. You said a symphony written in 3 days. Is that hyperbole, or did that actually happen?
Oh, sure, that happened all the time. Absolutely. I mean, there's famous stories about, Mozart in particular writing the overture to some of his operas, the morning of, because that's all he had. That's
What?
Things were falling apart. We're presenting some music in the next concert by Beethoven, and one of the opera overtures that he wrote, it literally couldn't be performed, the premiere of the opera, because he didn't finish it in time, and the orchestra didn't have time to rehearse it. So he had to plug in some other overture, and then the next day, after a day of rehearsal, only a day of rehearsal, then the orchestra played the new overture. So sadly, or weirdly in some ways, that happened a lot to these geniuses. I mean, some people worked on things for 20 years. Don't get me wrong, right? That's not everybody.
Yeah.
But things continue to be revised, certainly. But absolutely, I mean. I've been reading and listening to some podcasts on like attention and focus, right? And some fun studies that, like, all right, we multitask so often, and even just checking our phone for a second and then going back and typing or whatever, and in doing so, in these multitasking things that we're doing, it lowers our IQ by something like 10 percentage points, and we shouldn't be multitasking, and similarly though, like if you were to I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but if you were to smoke weed, it will lower your IQ by 5 percentage points. So it was funny, but they're making the joke that, all right, well, it'd be better for me to get high and to do a project, just focus on that one project, because my IQ's only dropped by 5 percentage points, 5 IQ points, versus me try to multitask and I'll be dropped by 10 percentage points. The point is, why I'm saying any of this is, what else was distracting Mozart or Haydn or any of these people from what they're composing? I'm sure there was something happening, but there's no screens, right? Someone else is making dinner or what have you. You got one outfit, right? You don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's you could, if you wanted to, I'm sure, be solely dedicated on that task at hand and really become a craftsman of whatever you're pursuing.
Yeah.
It's something that I need to strive better for. I procrastinate. I multitask far too often.
I thought you were going to bring it back around and say that the study showed that by listening to symphony music, that it actually raised your IQ. Can we make that assertion in some way?
There have been studies that have said that, but they've not been replicable. So all the whole Mozart baby thing, where everyone was playing Mozart for infants in the womb, or whatever. I mean, there was a huge studies that went on and supposedly proved this to be true, but then no one could ever replicate that study. So then everyone just said, it sounds good, but we don't think it's true.
When I am multitasking, I find if I'm going to be listening to music, some sort of classical music fits the bill the best. It doesn't distract me as I'm already multitasking. It just kind of enhances.
To each his own. Absolutely. As soon as I put on music, my mind turns off and goes towards that. I can't do both with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing we were talking about is Haydn, Mozart. So I've heard you mention, or maybe it was a note that said like Papa Haydn. Is that how he was referred to, or is that just what you call him?
I wish it was my affectionate name for Haydn. Me and Haydn, me and H. So people have called Haydn Papa Haydn for generations and generations, and I think people have the misconception that they call him Papa Haydn because he was affectionately called the father of the symphony. Certainly Mozart was doing it with Haydn, though Haydn's a few decades older. But people were composing the symphony thing for 50 years before Haydn basically actually got his hands on it. So Haydn was not the first, the inventor, as you say. He and Mozart, changed the focus and made it into the thing that the iconic thing that it is today. Certainly. But he's not the father of the symphony. People call him Papa, and called him Papa in his day, and that's why it stuck. Mozart called Haydn Papa in his day. They were such good friends, and I don't know if I'd go as far as to say friends. They were friendly and respectful of each other's work, but they lived in two different communities. They weren't piling around with each other. That wasn't possible. It wasn't realistic. And so Haydn turned out to be kind of a father figure musically for Mozart. Mozart's father was very much involved in his life and his upbringing and his musical education, but he left home, and his father stayed to compose in Salzburg at his court, where Mozart was brought up. And Mozart went off to Vienna and would there occasionally meet up with Franz Joseph Haydn, and because he became such a father figure to him and to Mozart's contemporaries, so that this younger generation is so kind and giving and gracious that people referred to him just generously because of his person as Papa Haydn. So it's actually a really nice, moniker. It's a really nice nickname for him, but it has nothing to do with music. Just the fact that he was just a really nice guy.
I love how you also made a contemporary analogy for people to kind of understand, like the distance or between Mozart and Haydn. You kind of associated Mozart with Aaron Rodgers and Haydn with Brett Favre to kind of understand like how that mantle is passed and just the level of greatness. Were they loved and cherished in their day as much as
they were? So Haydn was well respected by anyone and everyone, not just because of his person, because his music. I mean, there's so much music that we just never hear about Haydn. Yes, he wrote these 104 symphonies and dozens of chamber music things and oratorios, but he wrote dozens and dozens of operas too. I mean, he was prolific, absolutely. And in a lot of ways, Haydn gets kind of the short end of the stick because Mozart was this child prodigy. Haydn was not in the same way. Mozart was out touring all of Europe, gallivanting with his father and older sister, who was also a prodigy, for royalty all across Europe, and making a name for himself when he was 5. I mean, Mozart could write music earlier than he could write words. So the story goes. So he was just a whole nother beast. Mozart, this once in a lifetime, maybe once in a century talent, right? That not that he couldn't grow more and do more. He died obviously very young, but he was in a whole different league of his own. And because of that, and because of his character, he was a little bit of a rabble rouser. He was tempestuous at times. He fought back and stuck up for himself and his friends against some very powerful individuals. He was frivolous and loved to have a good time, and so he was in a way that we think of our modern day rock stars. Absolutely, he would be on covers of tabloids and be all of the rage. And so people talked about Mozart probably 10-1 over Haydn, though Haydn was no less, I don't think, of a composer. And in fact, I actually prefer Haydn symphonies to Mozart symphonies. I might prefer Mozart operas to Haydn operas, but let's not get in the weeds too much there. So they were absolutely respected, both of them, internationally in their time, but in some ways for different reasons. But both when they ended their careers and ended their lives, they were in a way treated. Their music was treated equally as respected in the musical community. So they were beloved in their time, but for different reasons. Aaron Rodgers is way more of a playboy these days, than Brett Favre is, I suppose, right? Brett Favre certainly did his commercials, don't get me wrong, but Aaron Rodgers' face is, everywhere in a different way. Is a whole nother era, whole nother time. The young blood who can do no wrong, inheriting something that was always made great, perhaps by someone else. I'm going down that Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre comparison a little bit, but supporting and changing this entity, this thing, classical music versus the Packers organization in similar ways. One couldn't exist without the other. One would have a completely different career if the other one didn't exist already, and have someone to live up to and live into. And although I never heard them talk bad about each other, maybe they did, I don't know. I think that there's mutual respect of what they've done for the profession of how to play quarterback, for example, in the NFL. So I don't know if maybe it's truly a great comparison, but it works for our area.
I love it. And the coolest coast here, Manitowoc, we are one of the smallest cities to have our own symphony orchestra. And it is a delight, Dylan, to be speaking with you and to hear this sort of background thought and preparation that's going into this concert experience. I just want to remind people it's classical era pops. The Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra will be presenting it on Saturday, February 4th at the Capitol Civic Center. It is these great works by Haydn and by Mozart. It will be followed by an afterglow at the Stage Door Pub, and it's going to be a candlelit experience. And as Dylan described, the final piece is going to be this Haydn piece where slowly, as the instruments finish their piece, the lights will be turned off until we know it's time to go home, time to go to the afterglow. What a cool experience. I've got like goosebumps. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. We got rehearsal tonight. I'm excited.
And I just want to look at some of these screen captures of comments that people have made about the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra. It really has an impact. It has an effect. I don't know. I think maybe it raises people's IQ, but that's unverified.
Well, we're hoping. I don't know about listening, but I think the participation in music absolutely has measurable value. It absolutely does. Studies have shown this. Enhanced concentration, language processing. Anyhow, I won't go in the weeds there. It's in the program notes. But I only bring this up because next Thursday, for the last 2 years, we've been having a trio from the musicians from the orchestra go out and work with the middle school students to keep them to enhance their learning, additive learning, to be mentors to these young individuals. Not that we want them to be professional musicians or anything, but we think that the diligence that you learn by practicing music, the hard work ethic that you learn by practicing music, and so on and so forth, is really valuable to any profession and just good citizenry. And so they've been doing this for last 2 years, continuing to do it. They go into schools every month, twice, and we're going to be inviting them to our rehearsal for the first time next Thursday. So I think there's 25 odd, middle schoolers who's going to be coming out to our rehearsal next Thursday, and in a way to as you said, make us all smarter. Not just a boost in IQ, but we see what's possible. We have something to live into. We've got role models that we can emulate, and it's not just, again, being a professional musician, but one of our bassists owns a trucking company. Why isn't that all? But so plays the bass. You know what I mean? So there's great balance, there's great harmony, and hopefully role models for these young musicians that if we use that which music can teach us in the rest of our lives, then maybe we can be healthier and just more awesome people. So I think there's a component to education. I use this as make us smarter, but sillily. But part of this is education, that we want to keep on growing. We never want to stop learning. We never want to be static. And I think perhaps expanding what we think is typical or normal or what a concert should be is part of that. And so candles and some bizarre Haydn Mozart pieces might be just what we need.
Just the ticket, perfect in time for Valentine's Day. Dylan Chmura-Moore, music director of the Manitowoc Symphony Orchestra, thank you so much for taking this much time out of your day to have this fun conversation. We really appreciate it, giving us some insight into the motivation behind the concert, some cool things to look out for. I think it's going to be great, and I hope that you'll come back and tell us about future concerts as well.
Please, I would love to. Thanks for having me.
You've made us smarter just by being here. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching Coffee on the Coast.